For a long time, humans believed that peace was the greatest weapon they could offer the galaxy. When Earth first entered the stars, they did not come with swords or fire. They came with open hands. They carried medicine for the sick, food for the hungry, and ideas for the weak. Other races looked at them with curiosity, some with suspicion, but humans smiled anyway. They believed kindness could build bridges. At first, it seemed to work. Small species who had been ignored by the mighty empires found comfort in Earth's generosity. Human doctors traveled to distant moons, saving children who had never even seen a human before. Human engineers rebuilt ruined colonies that others had abandoned as worthless. Wherever humans went, they tried to lift others up, but kindness in the cruel halls of the Galactic Council was seen not as strength, but as weakness. The older empires, proud and ancient, whispered among themselves. To them, humanity was soft, clay, ready to be shaped. They thought Earth would become their servant, useful for cheap labor and endless resources. The demands began small. "Share your medicines," they said. Humans agreed. Then they asked for soldiers to fight wars that had nothing to do with Earth. Again, humanity gave. More demands followed: metals, ships, knowledge. Each time Earth gave, hoping that generosity would earn respect. But respect never came. Instead, insults grew sharper. Human voices in the council were mocked. Their warnings were ignored. And still, they endured. They believed patience was strength. That time would prove their value. Then came the darkest order of all. A council faction demanded Earth's children for scientific studies. They said it was for the good of the galaxy, to understand human biology. Everyone knew the truth. It was nothing but cruelty, an attempt to break Earth's spirit. Earth refused. For the first time, they said no. The council laughed. They thought the young race had no right to deny them. The punishment came swiftly. Council warships descended on the Martian colonies. Entire cities were reduced to ash under orbital fire. Families burned in their homes. Children suffocated in collapsed tunnels. In a single night, tens of thousands were gone. The galaxy watched, silent. Some races pitied humanity. Others cheered, believing the lesson was deserved. To them, humans had reached too high. To them, Mars was a warning. This is what happens when a weak species dares to speak against the Council. On Earth, grief turned to fury. Streets filled with mourning, but also with determination. The Martian dead were not forgotten. They were remembered with clenched fists and silent prayers. The leaders of Earth gathered, faces pale with sorrow but hard with resolve. For years they had bent their knees, hoping kindness would heal old wounds. But the bombing of Mars carved a wound too deep to close. One message was sent to the Galactic Council. It was short. It carried no smiles, no apologies, no diplomacy. Only 4 words, broadcast across every channel in every language. No more. Never again. The Council laughed when they heard it. To them, humans were still weak. To them, Earth was still a servant pretending to roar. They believed the message was just anger, a scream that would fade into silence. But they were wrong. Something inside humanity had broken that day. The kindness they once carried like a banner had been torn apart. What replaced it was something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity's patience was gone. Their forgiveness had ended. And when humans stopped being nice, the war began immediately. After Earth's last message, no more, never again. The galaxy expected fire and fury at once, but instead, something far stranger happened. Humanity went silent. For the first time in years, human trade ships vanished from the space lanes. No diplomats walked the council halls. No messages came from Earth or its colonies. It was as if the entire species had vanished behind a curtain of shadows. At first, the council mocked them. "They hide," some alien leaders said with sneers. "They are afraid." The empires told each other that humans had finally learned their lesson, that they were nursing their wounds like a beaten animal. But silence has many meanings. To those who watched more carefully, it felt different. It was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of a storm gathering far away, unseen but inevitable. On Earth itself, the world had changed overnight. Factories that once built civilian ships turned into war foundries. Under the oceans, hidden cities roared with the sound of machines forging armor and weapons. On the moon, new bases were carved into rock, bristling with defense cannons. Even the smallest nations set aside old rivalries. No one spoke of borders anymore. Humanity had only one flag now, and it was soaked in the memory of Mars. Children were taught history differently. No longer did schools speak of Earth's kindness as the greatest pride. Now they spoke of survival, of dignity, of the duty to fight back when the world pushed too far. Families sent their sons and daughters not to explore, but to defend. The Council did not notice this transformation. They thought humans were sulking. They imagined Earth was crying in silence, too broken to respond. But the truth was far more dangerous. Humanity was not weeping. Humanity was sharpening its teeth. In the asteroid belts, massive shipyards grew like iron flowers. Their frames glittered in the cold dark, building warships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. No alien spy ever lived long enough to report what they saw. Scouts who drifted too close never returned. Humanity kept its secrets well. Even in silence, whispers traveled. Traders who dealt with humans in hidden stations told stories of fleets being born in secret. Soldiers spoke of strange new weapons tested in the void. Engineers who had seen fragments of Earth's work swore they were creating ships bigger and stronger than anything in Council fleets. But the Council dismissed it all. They believed no young race could stand against thousands of years of empire. To them, humanity was nothing but a stubborn child pretending to be dangerous. The silence stretched into weeks, then months. For many in the galaxy, life returned to normal. Wars between older empires continued, trade flourished. Council meetings carried on with their usual arrogance. Only occasionally did someone wonder, where are the humans now? And then came the first sign. On a lonely trade route, a Council warship was found drifting, torn open as if by invisible claws. No crew survived. No one could explain the weapon that had cut through its shields. No black box recorded the attacker. Only one message was scrawled into the wreckage, burned deep into the metal by some terrible heat. We remember Mars. The Council dismissed it as a pirate attack. But unease began to grow. Because in the silence of Earth, something moved. Something vast, something angry. Behind closed doors, human leaders no longer spoke of peace. They spoke of vengeance. They spoke of justice. They spoke of showing the galaxy what it meant to push humanity too far. The quiet was not weakness. The quiet was preparation. And in that silence, the galaxy's fate was already being written. The storm was coming. And when it broke, no world would be safe from it. The silence ended not with words but with fire. The Council had grown tired of waiting. They believed Earth was still licking its wounds, too frightened to face them. To prove their dominance once again, they sent a fleet to Earth's orbit. 20 warships, bristling with weapons, their banners shining with arrogance. Their commanders believed this show of force would be enough to crush human pride once and for all. As the fleet approached Earth, the alien officers mocked the planet below. "Look at them," one laughed, "still clinging to their blue rock. They should be grateful we teach them obedience." Another replied, "When they kneel again, we will remind them who rules the stars." But Earth did not kneel. From the shadows beyond Jupiter, shapes began to move. Massive, silent, and unseen until now, the ships of humanity revealed themselves. Titan-class warships, their black hulls swallowing the starlight, slid into position. They were larger than anything the galaxy expected from a young race. Their design was unfamiliar, angular, brutal, built not for beauty but for war. The alien fleet did not even realize they were being surrounded. They thought Earth was still defenseless. Their arrogance blinded them to the storm closing in. And then the void erupted. The first human strike came with a fury no one had predicted. Railguns the size of skyscrapers spat fire, their projectiles screaming through the void faster than light could chase. Missiles launched in swarms, intelligent and merciless, weaving through alien defenses. Plasma beams cut across the darkness, slicing enemy shields apart as if they were paper. The Council fleet never had a chance. Their shields flickered and died under the onslaught. One by one, their ships burst into fireballs, their arrogant banners turning to ash. The proud commanders who had mocked Earth only minutes before were now begging for help, their cries lost in static as their vessels were torn apart. On Earth, billions watched the battle from their screens. Families who had buried their loved ones on Mars wept, not with sorrow but with fierce pride. For the first time, they saw their people strike back. For the first time, they saw the galaxy's cruelty answered with justice. In orbit, the Council's flagship tried to flee. Its engines flared, pushing it toward escape. But one human titan followed, its weapons locking on. A single message was sent across open channels, cold and sharp. For Mars. The next moment, the flagship vanished in a storm of fire. When the battle ended, silence returned to orbit. But this was a different silence. Where once the Council's ships had floated with arrogance, now only burning wreckage remained. Not a single alien warship escaped. The entire fleet was gone. The galaxy trembled when the news spread. For the first time in history, a young race had destroyed an entire Council armada. The empires who had laughed at Earth now whispered in fear. If humans could build such weapons in secret, what else were they hiding? If humans could defeat a fleet so easily, what hope did anyone have of stopping them? But for humanity, it was not about fear or glory. It was about justice. It was about the Martian dead. It was about the children stolen for experiments, the families mocked and broken. Humanity had shown its teeth, and the galaxy finally understood. This species would not bow again. The first strike was more than a battle. It was a promise. A promise that every insult, every wound, every drop of human blood spilled by the Council would be repaid in kind. And so, the war truly began. The destruction of the fleet above Earth spread through the galaxy like wildfire. At first, many refused to believe it. The Council had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Their fleets were thought to be unstoppable. How could a single world, a young species barely a century in space, destroy them so easily? But the wreckage told the truth. Burned fragments of Council ships drifted in orbit, silent witnesses to the impossible. The Council's proud banners floated as torn scraps in the void. Not one ship had returned. Not one commander had survived. Panic took root in the Council chambers. The meeting hall, usually filled with smug voices and arrogant speeches, was now drowned in shouts of anger and fear. Representatives from dozens of species screamed over one another. Some demanded revenge, others demanded answers. "They are a danger to all of us," one alien roared. "If we let them grow, they will destroy us next." "They tricked us," another hissed. "They pretended to be weak while building an army in secret. They are liars. They are predators." A smaller voice trembled from the corner. "Or perhaps we pushed them too far." The hall went silent for a moment. But then the larger empires laughed cruelly. "Pushed too far? They are an upstart species. They should have stayed in their place. Now they must be taught obedience once more." Armies were called. Shipyards across Council space were ordered to double production. Thousands of warships were promised. Entire fleets gathered in preparation to invade not just Earth but every human colony. The Council declared humanity a threat to galactic peace, branding them rebels who had betrayed trust. But deep inside, behind all the shouting, a seed of fear grew. If humanity could wipe out a fleet with only a handful of ships, what else were they capable of? How many Titan-class warships did they have? How long had they been preparing? Questions filled the minds of leaders who once dismissed Earth as harmless. On Earth, the reaction was very different. News of victory spread like fire, streets filled with celebrations. People who had once felt broken now stood tall, Families hung banners with the names of Martian victims whispering, "We did not forget you. Justice has begun." But the leaders of humanity did not celebrate. They knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The council would not forgive. The humiliation. They would come with everything they had. In hidden war rooms, human commanders studied star maps with grim determination. They knew Earth could not simply wait for the storm. To survive, humanity had to strike first, again and again. They had to fight not just with weapons, but with cunning. The council prepared to unleash its full wrath. Humanity prepared to unleash its full fury. And so two paths rushed toward each other, inevitable and unstoppable. In the far corners of the galaxy, smaller races watched with wide eyes. Many remembered the kindness of humans, the doctors who healed, the engineers who rebuilt, the teachers who shared knowledge freely. They remembered how the council had mocked that kindness, had demanded more until there was nothing left to give. Some whispered in secret, "Perhaps the humans are right to fight. Perhaps the council deserves this war." But none dared to speak aloud. Fear chained their voices. Back in the council chambers, the leaders raised their claws, their wings, their tendrils swearing vengeance. "We will burn their worlds," they promised. "We will break their spirit. We will erase their name from the stars." Their words echoed with arrogance, but beneath it was unease. For the first time in their history, the mighty council had been struck, and struck hard, and somewhere in that vast galaxy, humanity was already moving. The war began like a fire in dry grass, small sparks at first, then roaring flames that spread too quickly to stop. After Earth's victory, the Council sent fleets to crush humanity. But the fleets did not find a frightened world waiting to surrender. They found hunters. Human ships did not fight like the Council expected. They did not gather in one place, waiting for grand battles. Instead, they moved like shadows, fast and unpredictable. They struck at supply lines, ambushed patrols, and vanished into the dark before the Council could answer. Entire convoys of Council ships disappeared in empty space. Outposts burned in sudden attacks. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries became killing grounds. For every strike, humans left a message behind. Sometimes it was carved into wreckage, sometimes broadcast over open channels, always the same words: "We remember Mars." The Council tried to answer with greater force. They sent fleets 10 times larger, filled with their best warships. But even then, victory slipped through their claws. Humanity refused to fight their way. Humans did not meet them head-on unless the moment was perfect. Instead, they chose the battlefield, turned the Council's size into weakness, and struck where the enemy least expected. And when humans did fight directly, they fought with fury that stunned even the oldest soldiers of the galaxy. On the colony world of Helios, a Council army landed, confident of an easy conquest. They outnumbered the defenders 5-1. But the humans did not surrender. They fought street by street, house by house. Families armed themselves with whatever they could find: old rifles, mining lasers, even kitchen blades. For 3 weeks, the Council forces were dragged through endless ambushes and traps until human reinforcements arrived from orbit. When the smoke cleared, the Council army was gone, and Helios still stood. The message was clear: humans would not yield. Not on Earth, not on Mars, not on any world. The war was not only about battles, it was about memory. Every human carried the weight of what the Council had done. The children taken for experiments, the cities burned on Mars, the endless insults. That memory turned into fire in their hearts. Even in defeat, they learned. Even in loss, they grew stronger. The Council began to fracture under the strain. Some species who had once laughed at Earth now whispered in fear. They saw the reports, the endless stream of destroyed fleets, and they asked themselves, if the Council cannot defeat humanity, what chance do we have? A few small races even sent quiet offers of aid. Hidden messages reached Earth: spare parts, intelligence, even safe harbors. They remembered humanity's kindness from before the war, and now, when the Council turned cruel, they saw in humans something the galaxy had forgotten: justice. But for humanity, the war was not about alliances or politics. It was about survival. And survival meant total resistance. The Council's propaganda painted humans as monsters, rebels too dangerous to live. They showed images of burning alien colonies, blaming Earth for every spark of war. But what they never showed were the reasons, how the Council had mocked, stolen, and murdered until there was no choice left but to fight. In the eyes of humans, they were not monsters. They were survivors. Survivors who had been pushed too far. Survivors who had turned into warriors. Across the stars, the Council felt the ground slipping from under them. The galaxy was changing, and everywhere in every battle the humans fought with one truth burning in their hearts. They had stopped being nice. And now, nothing could stop them. The war dragged on, and the galaxy was no longer the same. What once had been the proud and unshakable Council now looked fragile, like glass beginning to crack. Their fleets, once called invincible, were bleeding ship after ship. Their colonies, once safe under their banners, burned under human fire. At first, the Council had laughed at humanity. Then, they had raged. Now they were afraid. In secret chambers, the leaders of the great empires argued endlessly. Their voices shook with anger, but also with desperation. "We must end this war before it ends us," one alien shouted. Another hissed, "Then crush them completely, throw everything we have." But deep down, they all knew the truth. No matter how many fleets they sent, humans adapted. No matter how many soldiers they killed, humans rose again. Humanity fought as if every battle was personal. Because it was. Every human remembered Mars. Every human remembered the children stolen, the families mocked, the insults thrown at their kind. This was not a war of conquest. It was a war of survival, and survival made humans unstoppable. World by world, the Council's power cracked. Some of their allies abandoned them. Others secretly sent messages to Earth asking if they could change sides before it was too late. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty Council felt what it was like to be hunted. Finally, they broke. The Council called for peace talks. They broadcast messages across the galaxy, their voices heavy with false regret. "We seek an end to the bloodshed," they said. "Let us return to diplomacy. Let us rebuild trust." On Earth, the message was played in the Great War Chamber. Human leaders listened in silence. The words sounded sweet, but behind them was nothing but fear. Everyone in that room remembered the Martian graves. They remembered the laughter of the Council when Earth begged for mercy. A choice stood before them: accept peace or continue the war. Some might have thought peace was the wiser path, but humanity had learned. They had learned that the Council's words were poison, sweet on the surface but deadly beneath. The human leader stood, her voice steady, her eyes hard with sorrow. She gave the Council her answer. Peace was offered once, you refused. Now only justice remains. The message spread across the stars. When the galaxy heard those words, a chill ran through every empire. Humanity was not coming to the table. Humanity was not forgiving. Humanity was finishing what had begun. The Council's hope crumbled. Fear spread through their ranks. Soldiers deserted. Captains disobeyed orders. Entire colonies rebelled, some even rising up against the Council, inspired by humanity's defiance. The war grew fiercer. Battles became bloodier. But still, humans pressed forward. Their fleets thundered across the stars, carrying vengeance like fire in their hearts. Their armies marched with unshakable resolve. Every world they freed, every base they conquered became proof that humanity was done kneeling. The galaxy realized something terrifying. Humanity was not fighting for land, or power, or wealth. They were fighting for dignity, for survival, for justice. And no power in the universe could stop a people who fought with their very soul. The Council had reached the breaking point. Their strength was failing. Their fear was growing. And humanity, relentless and unyielding, was still rising. The end was coming. Everyone could feel it. The end came slowly, then all at once. For years, the Council had been the greatest power in the galaxy. Their fleet stretched across the stars. Their laws were forced upon every species, and their arrogance had no limits. But now, their capitals lay in ruins. Their fleets were broken, their soldiers scattered, their leaders hiding in fear. Humanity had done what no one thought possible. They had brought the mighty Council to its knees. The last great battle took place above the Council's homeworld, a planet that had once been the heart of galactic pride. The Council had gathered what remained of its strength there, desperate to hold on to power. Hundreds of ships filled the skies, their banners raised high, their commanders shouting promises of victory. But when the human fleet arrived, the sky itself seemed to tremble. Titans, carriers, and swarms of smaller ships darkened the stars. Their engines burned with fury, their weapons glowing with power. Humanity had come not as victims, not as servants, but as conquerors. The battle was merciless. The Council fought with all they had left, but humanity had become a storm that could not be stopped. Human railguns shattered alien cruisers. Missiles cut through defenses like knives. Boarding parties stormed enemy ships, fighting with a rage, born of years of pain, and then it was over. The Council fleet was gone. The skies above their proud homeworld were filled only with wreckage and fire. On the ground, human soldiers marched into the Council chambers. The once proud leaders, dressed in robes of gold and silver, looked small and fragile as they were dragged from their thrones. They had mocked humanity once, called them weak, laughed at their kindness. Now they faced judgment. The galaxy watched in silence. Species who had once cheered the Council's cruelty now bowed their heads. They knew a new age had begun. Humanity stood victorious, but victory was not without pain. Millions of human lives had been lost. Entire cities had been destroyed. Mars still lay in ruins, a scar that would never fully heal. Families wept for the loved ones who never returned. Humanity carried deep wounds, but their spirit had not been broken. Now the question remained, what would humanity do with its new power? Would they rule as the Council had, with arrogance and cruelty? Or would they choose another path? The answer came from the voices of the people. Humanity did not rise from kindness alone, nor from vengeance alone. They rose because they believed in dignity, in survival, and in justice. From the ashes of the Council, the human alliance was born. It was not an empire built on chains, but on respect. It was not a kingdom of fear, but of strength. Humanity declared that no species would be forced into silence, and no race would be mocked for its weakness. But they also declared one law: above all, never again will humanity bow. The galaxy listened. Some races trembled, fearing what humanity might become. Others saw hope, remembering the kindness that had once defined humans before the war. Many, scarred by the Council's arrogance, chose to stand beside Earth, hoping for a future different from the past. And so the galaxy changed forever. Where once the Council had ruled, now humanity's shadow stretched across the stars. It was not the shadow of weakness anymore, but of unshakable strength. The day the Martian colonies burned, humanity had been broken, but from that fire, they had risen stronger than ever. They had learned that kindness without strength is ignored, that patience without limits is mocked. And when they stopped being nice, they showed the galaxy what humans truly were: survivors, fighters, warriors. The war had ended, but the memory of it would echo forever, because everyone now knew the truth. The day humans stopped being nice was the day the galaxy itself changed.